my name is Jon Levesque. Hashtag John Flow has been a fun thing in the past. I used to talk about Game of Thrones all the time when it was popular, and so Jon Snow, John Flow, that was the thing. I do YouTube. That's what I do with all my free time. I actually have two channels now. One of them I do tech, Jon Levesque Tech, where I'm doing tutorials every week, bringing on MVPs to show their stuff. I try and do as few tutorials as possible and just play the host. It's a lot easier for me. I really enjoy talking about the technology rather than building it. So you guys are in for a treat here, getting to see me do a demo. It's a rarity these days. Um, and I'm not actually part of engineering anymore, and I'm not part of marketing. I live on a team called the Customer Success Team. Customer Advisory Team, CAT, C-A-T, Customer Advisory Team. And we're called the Power Cat Team. And so we have these funny little shirts with like paws on them, Power Cat. It's very cute. I love drones. I love making videos. I am a huge photography fan. I have a Instagram out there with lots of photos. One of my biggest things has been traveling the world, and I always tell people I like to see things with my own eyes. I like to be the one taking the picture for other people to look at, and so that's been a big thing of mine. And I getting to work with community, getting to host events, getting to hang out and drink beer and talk about power platform tools. It's a dream come true thing for me. It's a lot of fun a lot of the time. And so that's me. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter. I'll give you some connection information after. But I'll throw it out there. How do we want to start? Should I start off with showing the new things in Power Automate? Should I start off with talking about Power Virtual Agents and some really big news and changes there? Or do we want to talk about adoption practices and how we get other people to begin to think about this technology?
Maybe you could throw some things in chat or come off mute. See one thing for new things. Let's hear what the people want.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? It's got to be conversational. I can't do this all one-sided.
2 for adoption.
Okay.
Distinct count of that. 2 for new things.
Okay. 2 and 2.
Oh yeah. New things. Sounds like new things.
Okay, cool. So new things in Power Automate. All right, let's go there first. That means I need to pull up this other deck and come down here. So there's some new things that are happening in AI Builder, first of all. So I got to switch these screens. Display, swap. Okay, so they're adding in by default now a few things: receipt processing, text translation, explicitly tagging fields, and invoice processing starter kit. This is an interesting one where you can actually field by field kind of teach what an invoice is to an AI that will then say, this is my billing field, this is my from field, here is my total, so on and so forth. And that will actually plug in with AI Builder to do some interesting processing. And so this is coming. This is not out yet. All these things I'm about to show you are coming. They're on the roadmap, and these are all early builds from our internal tip environment is what we call it. And so those are some pretty cool ones. The receipt processing is very interesting because I've built flows to do that before, where you take a picture, you send the image up to Azure to do OCR, to scrape fields, to then process the information. And so this will make that a lot easier and actually included in your platform subscription. So pretty interesting there. Power Automate and virtual agents. This is getting interesting. I'm going to actually show a little bit of this, how virtual agents is getting easier, and also how they interconnect a lot easier. I heard that you guys had Chuck in the group previously, and so if you've seen that talk, I imagine if he showed any Power Virtual Agents interacting with Power Automate, what he would have shown is you having to do something called an HTTP call. And that's not something that everyone can do. That's more of a technical thing, and some of you who heard that might not even know what that is, and that speaks to the point of its difficulty. And so now one of the things I'll show you is actually there's a call like get values from Power Automate and return values to virtual agents. Get values from Power Virtual Agents and return values to Power Virtual Agents built into Power Automate. And then there's going to be some very interesting things actually where these two come together, where you're actually going to I don't know if I can talk about it yet. I'm going to save that one. You're going to train a virtual agent in a different way. You're going to use an RPA recorder to do some things that are then going to give that virtual agent some unique skills. As much as I can say about it, it's going to be really wicked. I'm very excited. I just saw an early build of it this week myself, and so these two tools coming together is really exciting. So now digital process automation, right? Let's get into some of the new stuff. Let's skip all this fluff. So a couple of things. We can trigger processes from inside of Teams, and there's a couple of demos of how that works. And then also how we can do approvals built right into Teams. That's actually a pretty exciting one. No longer will you have to build every approval from scratch. Inside of Teams, you'll actually have a experience that gets created for you on the fly. And so we can actually take a look at those two things here. So the first one is here where you are going to, let's see, what's this one? This is an emergency meeting. So you're going to build the flow here where for a selected message. And so you can see this new experience where it actually pops out an adaptive card builder built right into Power Automate. And so when you choose that message there, it's going to input this builder. You're then able to drag and drop and do all your selections to create the experience you want it to be. You then save it, and then look, it inserts it right into Power Automate. And so now you go ahead and you do all your stuff. So you have an adaptive card there that someone says, I need to have a meeting now, right? You've created that experience as an input that will happen right in line. And then right there, create a Teams meeting. And so this is one of the things I'll show you after. There's a whole slew of brand new Teams actions. And so for those of you who are automating anything in Teams, I actually just did a new video on it that came out today. Today is Tuesday. It came out today. It's about automating the creation of teams with an approval. And so you can see that process here of what, going through what automating, creating that meeting would look like, pulling all the variables through from your selected message, adding all your required attendees, whoever they might be. And then they're going to actually post a reply. So a lot of these actions you can actually play with right now. They're all preview. And so if you have a preview environment, that's where you'll get to use them. So now we're over in Teams here. We can see we're going to go ahead and go to more actions, which then gives us access to our flows. We choose the emergency meeting flow. It pops out an adaptive card right in front of us. What's the title of the meeting? Oh, it's an outage. You can then put in a description, put in your severity, right? We built that all into the adaptive card, hit submit, and then there it is. Like a return message comes back, incident bridge created. Here's the link. There's going to be required attendees added, who we put on. There's your join, boom, just like that.
That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah, and so
Awesome.
it's very cool, like all of this stuff coming together. And so this is just one experience, but there you can see the link again. You can see who requested it. You can see that your required users are there, right? And Harish, who made the meeting, all those details are right there in his inbox, in his Teams, ready to go. And so it's really cool to see the products coming together like this. This is another example right here. You're going to see, I think this is an approval process that's going to get created. And so right in Teams now, you're seeing the Power Automate authoring experience. And so if you weren't aware that you can do that now, that is already possible for you. You can pin Power Automate as an app, you can add it as an app, and you can do all your authoring right there in Power Automate. And so I'm trying to remember exactly this demo, these new features. They send them out in these slides where it's supposed to be controlled on who can show them and all that goodness. And so planner task creation post to teams. Oh, nice. And so check out this experience. So this is actually how you're going to create authored templates now through Teams, where we're going to abstract the build experience a lot away, where we'll simply ask you for a couple of inputs. You can see here, those are the minimum inputs, and so you can create the flow like that. Or of course, you could go to the advanced mode to edit the flow. But that experience you saw right there is our simplified template experience through Teams. That's what that one is. So let me go here. So now he's going to actually go into that flow. And you can see it's all created right there. 3 things. It asks like, what was the planner? What was the teams? Who was the user? He'd find those 3 things, and it actually made it for him. And so it's just a simplified way that we're trying to make it so a lot of these things that multiple people have to do in an organization, that tons and tons of people have to do across every organization, they're just clicks, right? This automation shouldn't be something that a user has to build and then deploy. It's just something that should be in the system as an option. And so now you're seeing Power Automate begin to perpetrate itself across the whole ecosystem in that way, where it is becoming that one-click automation engine where you can quickly use and deploy these things. So this one is the approval process that I was talking about. So you can see, oh, we haven't got lunch in a while. Let's go. And so they say, yeah, sure, why not? And so now you're going to see how I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new approval in my lunch conversation with Mark to say, why don't you go ahead and take a look at this? But look right in line. So hold on. They went way too fast. Let's go back. I want to go through that one more time. So I need Karan to approve. I hit that little button at the bottom. That's the first thing to notice. That's the brand new approval thing. What's my request? What are the details? What's the attachment, right? I attach that file. I load it in, and then I hit send. And so what happened is an approval was created behind the scene, which then generated an adaptive card. You can see it goes right here. He got a notification that adaptive card is generated on the fly. He answers it right in line in the chat. We go to our approvals tab. We can see that that's approved and ready to go. And also, if we went back to that chat with Karan, we would also see that adaptive card there was filled out and successfully completed as well. And so again, just trying to abstract the need to build these things time and time again, right? Because why is it that every time we need an approval in Teams, we would have to build a new one? I know that that's the way we've done it for a long time, but going forward, really trying to move away from the need for such things. And so these are a lot of the new integrated experiences and where we're heading on a couple of these things. Any thoughts on that stuff?
That's super cool. So with the templates, will we have an opportunity to have organizational templates from within Teams like we do elsewhere?
So that's something that the team has still not prioritized, to be honest.
Okay. Sorry.
It's something that it's something that gets a lot of requests, but the team has just not made it a priority. And so I would say if that is something that you want, user voice is something that we listen to. I know it's really lame to say, oh, go to the user voice. But on the Power Automate team, our ideas forum is something that we listen to. And so I always recommend that's the spot to go. Get it upvoted there. And if it's already upvoted there and the team hasn't answered it, then go ahead and just get it in front of me. I'll get it in front of the team. I'll demand some answers, and we'll see if we can make some progress on it. It is something that gets asked for a lot. And so I'm not sure why it's something that doesn't get invested in, to be honest.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, so the next one is it's pretty interesting. Office scripts in Excel Online. So you can actually use a flow to run Excel scripts. And so I am not much of an Excel junkie myself. I've never written an Excel script, and so I don't know how excited to be about this. So if you are an Excel person, let me know in the chat if this is exciting for you, and then I can use that example and tell other people that you were excited, and that will be great for me too.
Is that running like VBA macros?
I think it is.
Same thing as
Yes.
script. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very similar thing that where VBA macros sits in the desktop, the Office scripts, you can, as John shows, you can run a script from a flow. So it's like a modern online cloud version of VBA in a way.
Okay, excellent. Same language?
Different language, it's in TypeScript.
Oh, okay. Hey, one more
Yeah.
thing to learn.
But
Yep.
from a business user perspective, like I see a lot of requests in the forum of people that want to do things like they've got an Excel table or some kind of data format, and before they grab the data, they want to sort it. And it sounds like that's something they could do with this. They could sort the table, then grab the last row or the first row, depending on what they sorted on, to get something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have not built Excel scripts, and so not exactly sure, but that sounds great.
That sounds possible.
It does.
Great.
It does.
Cool.
It sounds really good.
And then it's going to order a chicken sandwich just before the
it's
guy.
going to start a UI flow that's going
Right.
to order a chicken sandwich. Yes. Inside
Record the gallons out of your sprinkler.
Yep. I track all that.
What else here? So they're unifying our ALM. So where the Power Platform admin centers are coming together. We are doing our best to also figure out how we get all of this through GitHub, how we manage all of our deployments and all of that goodness through GitHub. So that's a process we're going through right now. Also, there's connection references. This is something that has been asked for a ton. So that is there. It is done through the environment, and you have to do it in solutions. You must do it in solutionware flows. And so if you don't know what solutions are, it is a service that requires a premium license, and it is how you package up and deploy flows. And so if you want to have those connection references, definitely check into solution flows. And then also action analytics. This is a huge one as we have moved to all of these API call limits rather than runs. A big request has been, well, how do I know what that means? What do I know? How do I understand what my API calls are? And we can now say we are releasing that information. I believe it's actually out in most tenants. If you don't have it already, it should be in your tenant shortly. I would say probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks maximum. And I'm being recorded right now, and I realize that when I say that. So you can count on that date. And so that's a cool thing, just visibility into what's happening. And just, for clarity, most of our customers, I think we've seen 2% of all customers that have actually run into issues with API limits. And some of those are extreme cases. And so the average users nowhere near any of these limits, any of their concerns. And I think these dashboards actually have alleviated a lot of stress for a lot of people, seeing how their runs are being utilized. Also, there's a lot in the robotic process automation realm. So we acquired Soft Motive, and we now took their tool Win Automation, and it is now known as Power Automate Desktop. And so let's skip through all that stuff. Here you go. So there it is, Power Automate Desktop. So basically, what is Power Automate Desktop? It is Win Automation with our new skin, with some connection to the API flow world. And so there is some differences in functionality. If you're used to Win Automation, you'll notice a couple of differences. And also, if you have previously used our UI flows recorder, you will want to go ahead and stop any future investment in that tool. You'll want to go ahead and switch over to this Power Automate desktop tool, as all of our further investment in RPA will be made there. The UI flow path that we were on we will continue to support, but we will not make any further investment there. So that's a big thing to know. If you're going to go forward with RPA, with understanding how that works in our ecosystem and building solutions, you must build on Power Automate Desktop. And so if you want support. And so it's a cool tool. It's drag and drop, and it's very interesting the things you can do. I was quite amazed. I've started playing with it. I haven't built anything successful yet because, to be quite honest, ever since they released the tool, I've been in planning mode for the online conference. And so my amount of time that I've had to play with it that has been meaningful has been minimum, but all of the demos I've seen from the community have been amazing. Daniel Askowitz is doing a fantastic job showing this tool off. Also on the Power Platform YouTube channel, we have a series, I think it was 14 parts, all about Power Automate Desktop, getting started, doing variables. There's a lot of different parts to it. It was a fantastic series. And so there's a lot of built-in actions. We do connect into API flows, and so it's pretty cool stuff. It's come a long way, and actually there's a whole lot more interesting stuff coming. They'll be doing a December event where they release the next version with a whole bunch more goodness that I can't even talk about yet. Cool. Okay, so that's all my new Power Automate stuff. Questions on that before we change direction?
Hey, this is Don Parrish. I had a quick question on RPA.
Sure.
Put a quick comment out there. I had a business user actually try to use it to automate something for our new HR system. And the problem, it seemed to always be JavaScript. Someone like built some fancy non-standard interface to do use JavaScript to build a multi-user selection. And the tool didn't pick that up. And, I don't know if it's meant to do stuff like that or.
So it definitely is. And, I would love actually if you have a sample that they could share, if they would grant us access or a code snippet of the tool or something, I could definitely get them in touch with the right people who then could figure out why that's happening. And then honestly, we all could probably benefit from it if they could fix that. And so
Right.
I'll put my email in the chat, and you and I'm happy to get you connected to some people who could look into that for you.
Great. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah, and any questions about Power Automate, guys, very open to all of it. Product, licensing, community, any of that stuff.
One question I had, John, at Ignite, they were talking about the meeting extensibility of being able to capture questions and things while in a Teams meeting. Is that going to have a link into Power Automate Actions, or where's that going to sit?
I do not know. I have not heard too much about that yet. So there's a guy, Harish Menon, who sits on the Power Automate team. He owns that connection, Teams and Power Automate. He'd be a good guy to ask. He's on Twitter, or I could always get you connected to him as well. When I throw my email in the chat, feel free to reach out to me and let me know what your questions are, and I can always get you some info.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. No, they're doing so much stuff with Teams. It's interesting. Used to be 1 PM on each side, and now there's like 3 PMs on each side and engineering resources dedicated entirely to just Power Automate plus Teams. It's like a mini team within the team. It's pretty cool. Any other questions, comments?
So the PVA connector that you were talking about before, were you going to get more into that or no?
Yeah, I would probably show that in the PVA stuff, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it sounded like adoption was next. Do we want to go that route, or do we want to jump over to virtual agents?
Let's let the people speak again.
Let's let them decide. Gives me an opportunity to have a sip of my beer.
Let's see. Adoption.
Okay.
Adoption.
Awesome. Okay. This is actually This is one of my favorite talks that I've given. Okay, so let's start here. And I got to swap my screens again. Okay. So, working with Power Platform, working with any set of new tools is often intimidating for people, right? Because what we have to overcome is the idea that we're doing just fine, right? Most of us have a way we do things, and we feel like we are getting our job done that way. And to introduce new things is a problem. Not that it's a problem because it's actually a problem. It's a problem because it's interrupting the flow of how I do things. I already have the way I get it done. It might not be awesome, but I know that I can get it done, right? And so we have to overcome all these hurdles with people as we try and get them to take on new stuff. And so I've broken it down into a couple of categories of like, what are the things we overcome? And then how do we overcome those things, right? And so the first one is, I've alluded to it, it's fear. People don't know what to expect, right? They don't know how to feel about it. It's like a feeling of whoa, right? Like, and to be fair, I feel the same way. And when you ask me to use Power Apps, I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Like, do I have to? I don't get paid to use Power Apps. I get paid to use Power Automate. I get paid to use virtual agents now. I don't get paid to use Power Apps. Nobody's asked me to do any of that yet. And so I don't. Why? Because it's hard for me. And I don't want to look bad. I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to do something that might not get me the results I want, that might not help me get get the outcomes I want with how people feel about my work either. I think that's an important thing is understanding that, nobody wants to look bad and nobody wants to invest time in new things that they might not understand. And so the first thing you have to overcome is fear. Second one is a lack of tooling, straight up, right? A lot of places don't provide tools. There has to be a 3-page justification written to spend $15 for a license, right? I want to build a POC. I need a user license for a month. Okay, great. Go write a business justification. Is it worth it? No. I'm going to keep doing it the way I'm doing it because it's working for me, right? Why change it up? Why go through that business justification to spend the $15 to try something different when it's only going to cause me aggravation? On the flip side, a lot of other companies deal with the exact inverse. They have too many options. They provide every tool and you don't know what to use when. I need task management. Do I use Planner? Do I use To Do? Do I use OneNote? I don't know. Right? I need automation. Okay, great. Where am I doing that? There's a lot of tools for a lot of jobs, and a lot of places just provide everything and don't provide a lot of direction on what to use. And then the last one is the stuck mindset. And this is my favorite one. I deal with this all the time. You guys, do you deal with this where you talk to people and they're just like, well, we're doing it this way and it's fine, right? It's worked for this many years and why change now? Why fix what's not broken? My favorite is those system admins. Like when I started my career at Microsoft and we would talk about adopting the Power Platform, it felt like I had the same conversation all the time. And that conversation was, well, why would we go to the cloud? Our data's here where we know where it is, where it's safe. And I always found that so funny. I would always struggle to keep in a laugh, right? Because to me, I would always just return with one question. And my question was, oh man, you guys must spend so much on security. And it was funny because the response was never astounding, right? They never did spend a massive amount on security. And so their concerns about their data being secure were really just about a stuck mindset, an idea, right? That they were stuck, that this cloud was something that wasn't as good as what they knew and what they had. And so that stuck mindset is something that you must overcome as well. And so, how do we get that person to overcome it? And we're going to skip past this marketing crap. We just have to know that people will do anything to avoid change, and we have to push them through it. How do we make someone say it's time for a change? We do something called the art of the possible, and that leads us to transformation. And so my adoption technique is that. It's something I like to call the art of the possible. It is broken up into these 6 parts. It is discovery, opportunity, ownership, value, rewards, and support. And it's funny because this says discovery, and it should say show and tell. bothers me that it doesn't say it right. I don't know why it says discovery. I must have been trying to shit. I don't know why I wrote shit.
I just LOL.
That's awesome. Okay, here we go. Flip these around again. Okay, show and tell, opportunity, ownership, value, rewards, and support. These are the things it takes, okay? And so the first part is show and tell. This is a tough talk to give because I when I walk on stage, there's a lot of body motion and visuals I'm giving, and show and tell is the most vital part of adoption. It's the most vital part of getting anybody to start anything new. You always want to see somebody else doing it, to know it's possible, to know it's comfortable, to know that you're not going to set out on a journey that is not achievable, right? And so it's funny, like I just preach that if you're going to do anything in adoption, right, just do a lot of show and tell. And I relate it to kindergarten. Why do we have our children in kindergarten do show and tell? What's the science? What's the reason? Why is this instituted in our children's education? There has to be a reason, right? I went and I looked it up, and funny enough, some of the things I found said that it's all about exposure. It's about taking a child's exposure to things and enhancing it and widening it. The idea originally behind show and tell was much different than just bring a toy. It was bring something that's important to you or your family and show that thing off. And so it encourages children to do a few things, right? One, to have pride. Two, to get up in front of a group and build their public presence and ability to share things and speak in front of others. And three, it grants the other children the possibility to learn about new things as well. And so those are the intent behind show and tell. And so very much like what we're doing right here today, this user group, this is an adult form of show and tell. We do it with beer and pizza typically. Right now, we're on teams across the world from each other, which is cool that we can still do it. But that's essentially what we're doing, is a grown-up version of show and tell. And so at the end of the day, the most important thing is just taking what's already been done and showing other people, because there's no better way to learn. Better than a book, better than written instruction, better than verbal instruction is actually seeing it done. And so if you're only going to take one step away, that's the one. Just do show and tell. But more than that, as you do show and tell, as you present this to people, right, it has to come across as an opportunity. And so people are only going to see things as an opportunity for a couple of reasons, right? This comes down to human motivation. And human motivation is very much universal. I can talk to every person on the planet, and I can boil down most human activity to two motivators, common across everyone, no matter where I am in the world, no matter who I'm talking to, all the same, okay? Motivator number one, I want to look good, okay? Everybody. When we do something, a lot of the times what's motivating that is we want to look good. We want to look good to our boss. We want to look good to our spouse. We want to look good to our kids. We don't want anyone to think badly of us, right? We want to come across good to everyone. We want to be warm and fuzzy and have everyone think well of us. If we don't, you should get that checked out. Most people want everyone to think well of them. But second one, more importantly, so motivator one is I want to look good. Would anyone like to guess what is motivator number two?
How do you make them look good, baby?
So that would tie into number one is me and my motivation, but me and my personal motivation number two is I don't want to look bad. So I want to look good. I don't want to look bad. All human interaction, inactivity can be traced back to these two things. I want to look good to my boss. I don't want to look bad to my boss. I want to look good to my wife. I don't want to look bad to my wife. I want to look good to my kids. I don't want to look bad to my kids. I want to look good to my friends. I don't look bad to my friends, right? All things come back to this. And so when we present new things, new technologies, we present it as an opportunity. Man, you could save so much time. You could save so much money. You could save so much energy. That thing you do all the time, you don't want to do it anymore, right? Great, don't. right? And so how we frame it, how we present this show and tell matters. We give it as an opportunity. Ownership. This is an interesting one because when you want people to participate, you usually have two kinds of people, right? One is the person who doesn't want any ownership at all, right? Not me. I don't own it. That's not my job, right? I meet those people all the time at Microsoft. Do you guys know those guys at your work? Do you have those guys at your work? No, nobody? Okay. You're lucky. I have a lot of those people all around me. But then I also have a whole bunch of the other group too, which is I own everything. And that's the one I usually fall into. I want to own it all. If somebody is ambiguous about owning a project and there is credit to be had, I'm like, me, I own that shit. And so one of the ways that you get people involved when you present it as an opportunity, when you do some show and tell, is you give clear ownership. You put it on them. Hey, you can do this. There is some amazing learning opportunities here for you to get into. And then if you do those things, you could solve these problems. Those problems solved for the companies would lead to these amazing outcomes. And do you see how every step of the way, I just framed that whole thing as 3 opportunities for them? Every step, it became a greater opportunity for them to learn, for them to contribute, for them to be recognized. And so that ownership, opportunity, show and tell, right? Let's keep going. Value. Nobody gets involved in anything that they feel like won't be worth their time unless they have to, unless you're paid for it. I do lots of things that aren't worth my time, but I get a decent salary to do them. If I didn't, I wouldn't, right? And so what you are doing must be worth my time. Value is perceived in a couple different ways by people, though. One, I have to think it's worth my time, right? If I'm going to get involved, I got to know what I'm doing. I got to feel like I'm prepared because I don't want to look bad, right? And so I have to feel like I am going to get some value out of it. But also, for a lot of people, they have to feel like they're providing value. Imagine getting in front of a crowd like this. Imagine being in a situation where you're asked to give a talk and you have no idea what you're talking about. It's terrifying, right? It's a terrifying idea. Imagine being asked to create an app and you have no idea how to make an app. You don't feel like you're going to provide value. You are not going to want to create that thing because there's somebody better who could do it. And so making sure that people feel like it's worth their time is one part of it, but also making sure that they are prepared and ready so that they feel like they can provide value is another part of it. Rewards and the what's in it for me, right? Because again, nobody wants to do something that gives them nothing. And so recognition is a massive, massive part of this. If you're going to ask people to get involved and do things, when they do it, give them credit, shout them out. It's funny. I have a program. You guys will laugh at this, but it's true. Not many people know this. My program at Microsoft has an effective $0 budget. So all of the activity I do, everything on social, all the events I put on, all the user groups I do, all the content I create, all of it, it costs $0 effectively. I don't get to write a check to anyone for any service. Okay. And so that I feel like I would not provide that, right? If there wasn't something that was in it for me, right? And so reward programs, recognition programs, when you are asking someone to do something, you simply give them credit. And so like this event I have coming up, the online conference, there's like 30 or 40 people who are involved, and they have contributed a lot of effort and no money, right? And so what will be the payoff for them is when there is a thank you message that gets sent around with their boss on it that says, so and so contributed to an event with 30,000 registrations. Their part in it was this. And so, right, I say all that because recognition is one of the greatest tools I have. And it's something I leverage often because I don't have other mechanisms. And so it just I say all that because I want to prove the efficacy of recognition above all else. Now, if you can give rewards beyond that, if you can create contests and you can give people swag and you can give people money and you can, like, you're going to get all kinds of participation. But rewards can be anything. Just a simple pat on the back, just a thank you, just a name and an email. And it doesn't have to be bigger than that. And then this is a big one. If you're a person in leadership, this one is especially for you. Leadership can't block any of this, right? If we're going to ask people to do show and tell, right? To try and create value, to take ownership of projects, to take on opportunities for the company, if we're going to ask them to do all those things, we can't have a support infrastructure in place that blocks us. We have to have bought-in leadership. And there's a few ways we do that, right? Through proof of concepts that benefit high up offices, strategic projects that benefit specific offices, and also investment in tools. As the company makes strategic investment in tools, creating initiatives to educate around those tools is another opportunity to slide those things in. And so if you're in leadership, recognize that these programs are massively important if you're looking to scale, if you're looking to affect what you're doing with these tools and you're trying to get people to use them more. It's your job to really support things like this, to support recognition, to create opportunities, to allow places for value to be derived and given, and also to make people look good and help them not look bad. And so, this is how I think of the adoption cycle. And honestly, it's something that I feel you just run again and again and again, because as soon as we bring people through that reward cycle and recognition, suddenly I ask them to do show and tell, right? And we just come all the way back to the start. And then they get a whole new crop of people that they're showing opportunities to, that they're then giving ownership to, who are learning how to provide value, who are getting recognized, who then go back to the start and do show and tell. And this is the adoption cycle. And so I'll stop there. And we are, I feel like I ranted for a little bit. Let's take some questions. Let's talk about that. Any thoughts? Any questions? Do we think that was, am I full of shit? Let's talk a little bit.
I love that. I love that. I know I have a big job in the next couple months is implementing Power BI adoption to a big organization, and you'll find me coming time and time again, watching that again. Totally agreed.
Cool.
Big task. I mean, huge task.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
So yeah, John, I agree. I mean, there's multiple layers to it, right? And it has to start from the top. I mean, you can try to start it from the bottom, but unless you kind of get the big boss approval with the budget and everything like that and the time, it almost never materializes from the bottom. But then even if the big bosses agree and you roll the program out, I feel like when you're implementing, you kind of have to fight for your power users to bring them on board through change management, because they in turn become your allies and they kind of distribute the wealth of change management and then adoption down to the people that actually need to change, right? So you kind of have to string it up and build up your team to really make it all effective.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I think doing show and tell and there's some tactics that I have here as well. Let me see if I can get down to some brass tacks. So I break this down a little bit further here. Let me see. Let's keep going. Why don't we keep going a little bit? And so the way that I think about this is, how do we all play our part to create a future where line of business technology is democratized and works for everyone, right? And so the problem is that we have this way of working where we have this traditional reporting structure where it's like frontline worker reports into middle management is somewhere below dev and IT is somewhere below upper management, and then upper management reports into the C-level, right? And the problem is that we report in this way, but we also work in this way. And so what if we didn't work like we reported? And instead of this, oh, it's broken. It's broken. Oh no, man, I'm so unprepared. So what then instead if we did like something like this, right? Where these two people were actually creating solutions. These two people were actually paving a way where they were, you know, unblocking you and creating solutions where you're making connectors and things. And then these guys are actually just really not involved, right? Because honestly, the C-level doesn't really know too much. And so my question then is what's possible? And I'm going to have to swap my, that's so stupid. I need to fix a default there. So what's possible, right? If we change it up, I actually went and did an experiment with an organization, TransAlta in Canada. What I did was a 3-hour workshop with them. And I had 80 people from their company come, and I had them come from all over the organization, frontline workers, HR, IT, C-level, everybody that could possibly be spared by the organization come to that event. And so what did we do? We spent 45 minutes introducing Power Apps. We then had their IT team get up and show a bunch of the Power Apps that they had already made. And so what this did was it created a connection in people's minds to say, oh, whoa, okay, that Power Apps thing, that's that. I've been using that. We also spent 45 minutes showing them flow. And then TransAlta spent time showing them the flows that they had made and how they've been using it. And so that created the connection for them there. Oh, wow, okay, that's flow. This is how we use it. It also gives permission, right? By seeing that the IT team is using it, by showing these ideas and doing show and tell, you're granting permission. You're saying this is possible. We want you to do this. And so what we did then is we split the group into cross-functional groups and we told them to go and make ideas. 60 ideas were created. 15 of them actually got adopted by the organization to go ahead and create initiatives. And they gave these people 40% of their time. So 60% was dedicated to work, 40% was dedicated to these initiatives. They gave them the space to go and create these things. And so, pretty interesting. One cool story, within 2 months, their whole supply chain management contract process got refactored using Flow as the workflow engine, and it saved them massive amount of hours and money. But ultimately, they had this, and I'm missing another slide. Surprise, surprise. The biggest result they had was they built this Power App with a series of flows connected to it. I call it the mother of all apps. It's the coolest app I've ever heard of. What it did is TransAlta is an energy company. They do power, oil, gas, wind, all that. And so they have wind farms all over Canada with massive windmills. And apparently they were collecting data from these wind farms, but they weren't really using it well. They weren't doing much with it. And so one of the problems that got identified this day was a field guy came in who worked on the windmill farm. And he said, oh, one of the problems we have is we don't know what the hell's going to happen with the weather. And so we constantly shut down the wind farm playing guesswork. And so that actually got picked up as one of the initiatives. And it was a pretty interesting thing to see followed through. They were collecting all sorts of historical weather data. They were collecting all sorts of current weather data, you know, humidity, barometric pressures, wind speed, wind direction, all sorts of live feeds at their wind farm. And so they built like 17 flows and a Power App and a bunch of dashboards that contained all the information that gave them a comparison. In the past, when the dew point, barometric pressure, whatever, humidity and such was at this, did that create ice? That was the question that they asked of their data. Did it create ice? Because ice is one of the things you have to worry about with a wind farm. Apparently, if your windmill gets all icy, it can mess up the bearings and totally break how the thing rotates. Then it has to be taken down, disassembled, repaired, to the cost of millions of dollars. And so instead, what TransAlta would do is they would just turn off their power, their wind farm. Instead of risking ice, just turn it off. We're not going to make power. We're not going to risk it. And so this left them a massive inability to understand when this would happen, and oftentimes they would turn off the power for no reason because the ice would never come. The dew point never reached the threshold that would form ice, and they turned it off for nothing and they lost money. So they built this app and these flows, and they brought this to us 2 months later. And we looked at this thing, and they actually have it in production today. It's been running for a year and a half at this point. And this app allows them to now understand their wind farm grader. They're able to run on average during leading up to a weather event. They run 6.5 hours longer than they typically would, which has led to them generating about $80 million more than they did in the previous year from their wind business because of one app and 17 flows that allow them to compare weather data. And so how did this happen? It happened because a frontline person was given space to have an idea. An IT team was then brought on as a partner to help create connectors, to help create DLP and barriers and guidelines and guide the process and partner with the business. Cost them about $30,000 or so for this whole exercise when we added up the cost of everybody who attended the training and everybody who participated in the outcome. 30 grand made them about 80 million bucks. Why? Because they were willing to do business a little bit differently, because they were willing to allow the frontline worker who understood the problem best to have some ability to go ahead and solve that problem. And so it was really this. It was this adoption method of show and tell, granting opportunities to the business, giving clear ownership, making sure that everybody saw the value. We did rewards and recognition programs so that guy from the field who made this idea got a bonus, a cash bonus. The IT team who put this together got a cash bonus. Everybody who was involved in bringing this to reality and making the business extra money was rewarded in cash compensation, because the business felt like that's how we want to say we enjoy and we reward this kind of innovation. And so they're a pretty cool organization, TransAlta. They've continued to work with the Power Platform. They continue their investments, and they're in all of the tools, and they have a really great team over there that you can reach out to and talk about things and stuff. And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and stop there on that one. Any thoughts on that? Crazy story, right?
That's probably the best success story I've ever heard.
Yeah, I always pocket that one. I always like to tell that one because it's like, it's just a cool thing too, the wind farm in and of itself, and then how that all came together, and just them using the method, I think, too, embracing it and allowing that guy a voice, to say this is a problem and really addressing it. And yeah, very fun.
Sure. I have a couple questions. First, was that the first time you kind of saw that organization have all the groups come together? And second, what were the results maybe a year later, a year and a half later? Did you see more collaboration, obviously adoption, because this worked really well, right? What do you see about like a year and a half later?
Yeah, so they have doubled their investment in Power Platform. And unfortunately, there was some oil trouble. And so they had run into a little bit. I mean, they're still a company, but they haven't maximized or grown to the amount we would have liked to have seen. But their Power Platform investments have doubled. They still have a massive practice today. They have a lead over there, Kelly Powell, who runs their Power Platform Champions program. They're still massively involved in our champions calls. And so adoption across the board, everybody over there is encouraged to use Power Platform. They have a very cool governance system that was put in place by Kent Weir, who actually used to work there. He's a community guy, very, very awesome teacher. If you guys haven't seen anything from Kent Weir, definitely encourage you to look him up. And so I haven't reached out to them. It would be about a year and a half now. I would love to reach out to them again and see where they're at with things. But it's interesting because what happened is they actually spawned an adoption movement in Calgary, Canada. Because of TransAlta's success, the Power Platform got adopted very widely in oil and gas in Canada. And so our market penetration there is actually pretty significant, and a lot of that was due to TransAlta coming forward early on and saying, we're making a full bet on the Power Platform. Here's a lot of the cool things we're doing. And so I think the investment on their part for us, when we look at it, is not only what did TransAlta do with it, but how did they change the landscape of power in Canada and how they engage with the Power Platform. And I would say that's even more significant than how TransAlta is using it.
Excellent.
Cool.
Any other questions or comments for that? That's really, I love that.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about this stuff anytime. I'm actually trying to put this together in a formal package that people can leverage, and so keep your eyes out for that. I'll be putting out something that, like, a train the trainers guide on how you run a day like this, basically. How you can take this and replicate this in any business.
Brilliant.
Just on that case study, John, was there anyone from the company, from TransAlta, what was the spark for them to actually come up with that day? What
was the spark to come up with doing that day?
Yeah, from the company side.
Yeah, it was actually an IT guy. He was very, very much an evangelist of the platform early on. He was building POCs on his own, solving problems for the company. He was actually our main injection point that started a lot of that. And from there, that's what really grew a lot of it. And so I prodded. I said, hey, I got this idea. I want to run this training. What do you think about it? And so we went back and forth a little bit on format and what he thought they could do. I wanted to do a whole day. The reason it was 3 hours, it was because that was all the company would agree to, and putting that many people forward for an event. And so a lot of that stuff, got decided in partnership, but a lot of that was definitely led by an IT guy who was passionate at first, for sure. And so that's very typical. I see that a lot, where it's one business user who is just creating cool stuff, solving problems. It's one IT guy who's creating stuff, solving cool problems. And oftentimes that's that fire that just gets everything started.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Anybody else? So we got a little bit of time left. I'm happy to do general Q&A, AMA, ask me anything. We can talk about Power Automate. We can talk about the Power Virtual Agents announcements. Before we do AMA, let me just make those. Since I'm not going to go in and do a big demo, I just want to share. There's a very important part that you need to know. Power Virtual Agents is now free in Teams. No session count, no nothing. If you create a virtual agent and you source it in Teams, it's 100% free. It's a crazy savings, and I know that there's been a big blocker for people to adopt Power Virtual Agents because of that $1,000 a month price point has been, a point of concern, and rightfully so. But now, again, like I said, you can create a virtual agent. It can call, Power Automate. It can do anything that a virtual agent premium can do. But so long as your endpoint surfaces only in Teams, that bot is 100% free.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. I find that incredible. There's some internal things that happened that brought that together. It was something I never thought was possible. But two teams came together in a way that teams typically don't come together, and they made some agreements, and the Teams team has made it possible so that all users of Teams can have Power Virtual Agents access 100% free.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so also some other news there. If you've toyed with Power Virtual Agents and you've run into the trial expiring, I just want to tell you, go ahead and click the button to extend the trial. I have extended mine a couple of times. I've talked to the team, and nobody seems to know what the limit is on how many times you can click the button to extend the trial. And so if you are already using Power Virtual Agents on a trial and it expires, just hit extend trial, and that will work again and again and again right now. And so I'm sure they're going to fix that at some point. And so don't like quote me that this is going to work forever, because in fact, the opposite. I'm sure it won't. But right now, you have unlimited trials. So you can go and build virtual agents to your heart's content. And then once that trial ends, you can actually go ahead and continue to just build that in Teams and source that in Teams, and it's free forever. So some really great news. There's no better time to get started with virtual agents than today. And then let me actually show you one thing here.
One quick question before the subject changes.
Yeah.
The AI builder trials, does that fall under the same category as unlimited extensions at this point?
I actually don't know 100% on that one. I can find out about that. Have you clicked it a few times and it's already worked a few times?
Yeah, I'm probably 3 trials in at this point.
Okay, so I'm going to assume yes, that
Got it.
would be the same right now. Okay, so a couple of things. Oh, I got to talk about the event too. Man, I said I was not going to talk for that long, and I have talked a lot. Okay, couple things here real quick. I want to bring your attention to the Power Virtual Agents community, and most importantly, the webinar and video gallery and the bot sharing gallery. So people have created bots and shared them. So bots you can actually leverage, topics you can actually leverage today. But then there's this webinar and video gallery. There's like 90 items already in here. 4 pages of stuff. There is a ton. There's a ton from myself and the community already. We started a brand new show called Build a Bot. So Kent Weir, who I was talking about, is part of that. Matthew Farmer, another Microsoft guy. And in episode 1, we talk about bots, but more importantly, like why power virtual agents. And so if you're looking to get started, definitely jump into the community, get into the webinars and video gallery. And there's like I said, 90 items here, absolutely free to go ahead and get started. And all the communities actually have this. If you're interested in Power Automate, there's a webinar and video gallery. Power Apps, same thing. And so if you guys already know about that, no problem. But if you don't, there's a ton of goodness in these communities. There's blogs, there's videos, there are examples. It's a lot of great stuff to get. Okay. So I know I'm jumping around a lot. Anything else on virtual agents? No? Okay. All right. Last thing we'll talk about here, and then we'll do a bit of Ask Me Anything. The Power Platform Community Conference. I am happy to say, you guys, 30,000 people are registered. It's a huge thing in Microsoft to get your virtual event above 5,000 people. And so getting this over 30,000 is quite an achievement for us. So I'm feeling really great about that. And the cool thing is it's a whole day of community content. It's all of you guys, like by you, for you. Ed is doing a session there. He's the third session of the day. He's doing a conversation with his younger self, 10 things he wish he knew about Power Automate when he got started. So that's a lot of fun. And then it'll be pretty cool because in between we'll have a live studio segment, and there's actually a whole bunch of special appearances from Microsoft people as well. I have tried to flip the script on a typical Microsoft event where we have community members all showing up in the keynotes and us doing sessions. Instead, I'm going to try and have all of you guys do sessions, and we'll have Microsoft people make little cameo appearances instead. And so that's a day and 11 hours away. You can get registered at powerplatformconference.splashthat.com, or a quicker link is aka.ms/POPCC. And so there's a lot of great stuff here. We have our Power Platform Twitter that we have started. We have our online communities, which I've showed you. We created a Power Platform Fundamentals Skills Challenge where you can get a little certificate that you can put on your LinkedIn and show off as well. It gives you, it just says, hey, I've completed the community conference Power Platform Fundamental Skills Challenge. The next day we have an event with some former community members who have turned Microsoft to kind of talk to them about what were their favorite things. We'll have social media interaction through the day. We'll have like a giant like Surface Hub thing where we can interact with Twitter and talk with you guys. It's going to be a super cool event. And if you haven't heard about it, definitely go and get registered. And if you have heard about it, Don't worry. There's only 2 days left. I'm almost done talking about it. Cool. So I think I'll stop there. And
Awesome.
if you guys have any questions about anything, lay them on me. Happy to answer about anything we've discussed or anything else.